got a friend in me. You got a friend in me.
Stop it. Stop.
When the market looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed.
That's definitely getting cut.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Skippy and Doogles Show. It is so bad this week that Doogles was just doing, I think he prayed and was doing breathing exercises before the show. We've had a really tough week, but we're going to break it down for you. So this episode is entirely about tariffs, entirely. But if you're sick of tariffs, if you find it depressing, I encourage you to stick around because this is going to be the most fun takedown of economic tariff nonsense you've ever seen. I plan on crushing all the poor economics and all the poor math that happened this week, and that's basically all that happened. After that, we'll do Inside the Trade. This show loves America more than any other podcast. 100% on the record. If you want to have a Do You Love America games, we are in. We'll show up any place, anytime. We love America, which is why we're going to call out the illiterate mathematics that happened and the misunderstood economics that happened this week. It's not political at all. It's just like trying to destroy the economy. We are going to pull it out. The way we're going to do that is we're going to do an oral history of this past few days, starting Wednesday at 4:22 Eastern. President Trump goes to the Rose Garden to announce what? Big, beautiful tariffs? I don't even know what they were called. Doogles is live on the scene, consuming every word.
Every word. And it made, here's what I did. I snuggled up. I had my little blanket on me. I had to get as comfortable as possible so I could watch this in the comfort. Have you ever watched Dog Whisperer?
No.
He always says, Caesar, he always says, you got to get the dog to balance. Get the dog to where they're balanced so you can rehabilitate the dog. So I got myself to balance. I snuggled up, had myself a nice cup of tea. I was like,
yeah,
watch this.
What are the snacks? So tea, popcorn.
Crumpets. I went straight back to the UK, baby. Tea and crumpets.
All right. At this point, Doogles says there's an incredible overview of economic history right now happening.
That's right.
Texts me. I'm concerned that he has time to even consume the event, but he does. And pretty soon, disbelief starts to hit the text chain. So, one, there might be some confusion about if China is Taiwan and if Taiwan is China. That's during the verbal speech, correct, Doogles? This is what's happening here?
That's about the semiconductors. Talking about the semiconductors.
And then the list comes out. President Trump is holding up the billboard, right? That no one can read. And it lists China and Taiwan as two separate countries, and everyone's rejoicing. This seems like great news. The not so great news is the numbers on that chart. So as soon as I see this, Doogles, I'm going, wow, Nike's at $60 a share. This seems like a deal. Nike went all the way down $50 a share. And we're going to talk about the economic turmoil of most indices in the U.S. going down 10% in 3 days. But that comes later. So we're still digesting things on Wednesday night. And
why'd you skip the detail of TSMC? Why'd you skip the detail of that? It's important detail.
Go for it.
Yeah. So we have to believe in the president. I'm going to go with what Dave Chappelle said. When Dave Chappelle was on SNL and he said, Mr. President, we're counting on you. That's it. We believe in you. We have to. We're counting on you. So I'm sitting here watching my guy with my tea and crumpets. I'm watching this. And he says that TSMC, which everyone knows is the largest semiconductor factory, creator, company.
Largest, most advanced, critically important for security.
All the things. They're based in Taiwan. He says they're investing $200 billion in the U.S. because they don't want to pay the 34% tariff that we're putting on China. There are so many things wrong with this. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's what he said. Go back, watch it. You know what I'm saying? One of the things that's wrong with this is that because they are the entity that would be exporting to us, they're not paying a thing. We would be paying. Our companies would be paying. The second thing that's wrong with this is they are not based in China. No, 0%. Like 0% based in China.
Well, in addition to this, the chaotic rollout, I mean, and I more want to talk about the economics and poor math. That's really where I want to focus today.
I know
but
you do.
We already put a 20% tariff on China. And then we held up a billboard that said a 34% tariff on China. And then when you go to the Treasury Secretary and say, does that mean there's now a 54% tariff on China? He says, I believe so. Like, he doesn't even know.
He doesn't know.
Right? That's how chaotic and rapidly this appears to be evolving. Now, some people say that's because this is all a negotiation tactic. I'm going to explain why this is a horrible negotiation tactic, if that actually is the case. And that's largely because we got the math wrong.
We also don't know if it is.
Yeah, but you can only alienate so many people. Like, this desire to alienate basically every country in the world is really bizarre. So anyway, let's get back to the dialogue. At this point, the world is starting to understand the severity of what's been announced Wednesday evening. The markets are closed, but the CEO of Restoration Hardware happens to be on an earnings call, right?
Yes.
He happens to be on
so good. So good.
During his live recorded in his most professional stance in front of investor, he looks at a 25% drop of his stock related to unclear but clearly very large tariffs, where he gets all his furniture from. His stock goes down 25%, and he starts cursing
on his earnings call. Right? Those sort of events are trickling. So Morgan Housel is tweeting a quote from Nicholas Taleb that says, "Men destroy each other during war and themselves during peacetime." Right? Yes.
That's his initial reaction. The actual reciprocal tariffs, which we can't even call them that because that's just a straight lie, but in quotes, the reciprocal tariffs charts start to make their way to Twitter and the Wall Street Journal and everyone else. And me and anyone else that's mathematically inclined and cares about economics is trying to reverse engineer this formula, because we know it's clear, like, first country listed on this chart says China, and it claims that they charge us 67% tariffs. Everyone knows that's not true. So we're going, where did the math come from? Like, are these numbers just completely made up?
Hold on. Can I pause you?
Yeah.
You say everyone. Everyone doesn't know. The reason why we're about to do economics lesson in here is because a lot of people believe the chart. A lot of people still believe the chart.
I find that we're just going to have to agree to disagree. I don't believe, and I'm being hyperbolic, I say anyone, I don't believe the majority of people actually believe this to be true. These numbers are so nonsensical.
I get that. I was on X, which I'm trying to be a better person and not call it Twitter. I was on X, and there was someone that works at Sequoia. One of the largest VC firms, that was tweeting out, now I just ruined myself, that was tweeting out these numbers like they were truth. If someone of that financial mind is believing this, then Jacob, who's eating his tea and crumpets out in eastern New Jersey,
as one does, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as one does while watching beaches.
I'll let you continue to interweave the economics lesson. But anyway, calculation gets reverse engineered. It took about 9 minutes by my count, right? I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but James Sothewicki, I don't know, appears to be...
Chicky. Yep.
Chicky.
That's
the first one to do it. And the equation is basically, is exactly the U.S. trade deficit divided by U.S. imports divided by 2. So
That's right.
they said this tariff rate for the other country to the U.S. is the trade deficit divided by U.S. imports. This is the most nonsensical. Like, this got me super fired up because there's absolutely no logic to this. This implies that every country in the world should buy and sell the exact same amount of goods between each other. Doesn't matter if the U.S. is going on 400 million people and a country like Ireland has 4 million people. It doesn't matter if there are entire regions of the world where you can grow coffee and avocados and other regions of the world where you can't. Go ahead.
Why are you assuming that a country has to have people in order for us to believe that they're...
A country does not have to have people because we slap tariffs on some far-off islands that have no natural inhabitants and only penguins.
Yeah, those are natural inhabitants. So I'm
okay.
Big penguin.
No humans.
Yeah, no humans. No humans. This is like, so when you look at equation, again, trade deficit divided by imports.
Mm-hmm.
If I went to Target and bought $100 worth of goods.
Yes.
And Target bought nothing from me.
Yes.
I would then say Target taxed me 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Their tariff rate is 100% to me, and I get pissed. Then I would say, I'm reciprocal tariffs. No, I'm reciprocal tariffs. That's what I would do.
It's completely outrageous. And this example holds true with any place that you support, whether it's my breakfast burrito place, Target, the grocery store, the auto shop. Like, they don't buy from me.
Vietnam.
They don't buy from me because I have no desire to sell them anything. My business does not sell to grocery stores. My business does not sell to restaurants. The restaurants make better food than I'm able to make in my home. Do I really want to say, like, shame on them? I have a trade deficit with them because they provide a service that makes my life better. Somehow that's a bad thing.
Tax them. Tariff them. Why aren't you? Tomorrow, I'm going to Target, and I'm going to tariff them. I'm going to say reciprocal. I'm going to grab, actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk into Target. I'm going to grab something off the shelf and run out and scream, reciprocal! That's what I'm going to do. And if they arrest me, first of all, I'm going to say this is part of your anti-DEI situation. Second of all, reciprocal.
It's so bad. So then this is still Wednesday night in our oral history here. And the tweets are flying, right? It's people saying exactly how I felt at the time. My goodness, I have so much cash, but I do not have enough cash for how much the markets are about to fall, right? So we kind of roll in. I think the investing community fully understands actually what happened. You again, I would say the majority of people start to understand. You would say no one. You would say 2% of people actually understand how this were calculated. They aren't reciprocal tariffs at all. They have nothing to do with tariffs. They are a desire to zero out the trade deficit between countries.
Continue.
All right. So we're still Friday night. We're still Wednesday night. We're Wednesday night at like 7:30. And the poly market U.S. odds of a recession spike by about 10% in 5 minutes. Right?
Correlation, causation, we don't know. Correlation, causation, we don't know.
No one can know. How could we ever know?
It's impossible.
Going on here?
It's impossible.
We roll in. Well, no, at this point, I'm just going for a long walk, let's put it that way, and wondering how the Wharton School of Economics continues to have a license.
You're going for a long walk. I got crumpet crumbs just all down my chest. Just so everyone's aware of the visual at this point. I got crumpet crumbs. He's going for a long walk. Continue.
Everyone writes up their own personal tariff example, and then the Reagan quotes and the George W. Bush quotes start flying, right? We're not going to play it on the show. There's the Bush Q&A session where he talks specifically about the harms of protectionism, specifically about what tariffs did in causing the Great Recession in the 1930s. And a similar event that happened in 1828 where we became protectionist as a country, and it led to a destruction of well-being for the citizens of this country and others.
That's right. That's right.
This point, late into the night on Wednesday, Dougles is starting to send me stock picks. We're going to talk about that with Inside the Trade, right?
There we go.
Some things are starting to look juicy. The most interesting one that we'll talk about briefly here is just Nike, right? Nike gets crushed, as does all the other footwear manufacturers that have some Southeast component. Because, and this is another reason why this calculation is so hogwash. The Biden administration and U.S. government for the past 20 years had been slowly telling these retail manufacturers to diversify away from China, right? And a lot of those countries went to Vietnam, which is a much friendlier country for the U.S. Well, then, because the formula is calculated with a hogwash, with no thought, basically, we're going to even talk about that more. We actually give a larger tariff to Vietnam than we do to China, which seems to punish the companies that tried to work with our government.
The war is not over, people. The war is not over. The Vietnam War.
Which war?
Is not over.
At this point, and I promise we're about to move on from this, but at this point, the administration claims that no, the calculation is much more complicated than U.S. trade deficit divided by U.S. imports, right? And they throw out this write-up with some Greek letters on it.
Mm-hmm. Alpha, beta, gamma, baby.
The Greek letters have 5 variables. The 5 variables include exports, imports, and imports again, which is how you calculate deficit divided by imports. And then 2 figures that were set to cancel out. They were set at 4 and 1/4. Now, there's been some follow-up write-ups, most notably by the AEI company, I forget what they actually stand for, that says if you do the macroeconomics this way and use this formula, the tariff calculation for the digit that they set to 0.25 should be about 0.95, which would actually reduce all the reciprocal tariffs by about 1/4, which would bring nearly every calculation under their minimum tariff calculation of 10%. So even if you try and buy this logic, which I don't, I think this logic is complete and utter hogwash that makes every math professor I've ever dealt with in my life want to vomit. It's still applied incorrectly.
And this is the point where, for the second week in a row, I'm bringing up The Big Short, okay?
Yes.
Because in my mind, let's go back to Wednesday night for a moment. In my mind, I was looking at everything you just mentioned. I was looking at the people that were like, here's a calculation. Here's a spreadsheet that shows you that is the calculation. And I went, first of all, my first reaction was no. Like, it can't, I'm sitting there with my tea and crumpets trying to be balanced. I was like, no, it can't be. Then when it obviously was that, I said, my goodness, when this comes out, how are they going to explain it? Then, to what you're describing, they put out their own report.
They proudly explain it.
So The Big Short, if people have not seen this movie recently, it's a good movie. Go watch it, read the book, whatever. There's a part of The Big Short where they say, why are they confessing? They aren't confessing. They're bragging. And can you react to that? Because I straight up was like, wait, they are putting this out and telling people that this is how they, using nothing that has to do with tariffs is how we calculated the tariffs? Like, how do you come out with a straight face and say that?
It's very concerning. A member of the staff actually went to James's tweet that I referenced earlier and said, no, this is not true. He said, we calculated it individually and here's the formula. And then when you go through the fine print, you realize that the Greek letter formula matches the trade deficit divided by imports formula, which smart people figured out 9 minutes after the announcement. It's utter insanity.
Like the fact, okay, if they go through the painstaking exercise of calculating what the
It's not painstaking. It took me 2 minutes to validate. You pull down a spreadsheet, take deficit divided by imports.
that should be impossible.
Well, it should be impossible because the actual tariff rates for like some of these countries that they claimed were 90% or 1.7%. That information is all readily available too. So if this was about fairness, one, tariffs are bad. They hurt the economy and they hurt real consumers all over the world. And if that's not crystal clear to people, we can't explain why. But two, if you want to actually do this, if this talking point makes any sense, and I would argue that it doesn't, because every trade that happens here is a willing trade, right? We don't take it to the family level. Like my family does not buy something from China if it doesn't make us better. We don't buy coffee from Guatemala if it doesn't make us better. We don't do this.
I have my quants talk about this.
What about tariffs are good? Let's start with that.
We actually used to have tariffs with President McKinley. In the modern economy, it's hard to master tariffs. There's a bunch of other countries that we're now putting tariffs on that actually have had tariffs on us for a while.
It raises prices. And another thing, it is a form of hostile foreign policy. The state of world politics at the moment needs a lot less hostility.
If you have large tariffs on cars, that makes people then want to buy cars made in the U.S. because they're cheaper than cars made in Japan or Germany. It encourages your own economy.
I personally think tariffs are good, but I can see how tariffs are kind of alarming Americans.
I don't know why these chitlins are talking about tariffs. I'd like
I
that
do.
Why?
It's been glamorized.
Tariffs?
It's talked about in every living room in this country this week and last week. It's a sad, sad world we live in. This should be something that gets zero thought for your average, what were those, 15-year-old?
Yeah, and the problem is it got zero thought from our government. This will be political for a moment.
Yeah.
The issue is, I brought this up a couple weeks ago. The reason that Trump is able to put the tariffs out there is under an emergency set of orders. He has declared a national emergency.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
We'll get there. But what I brought up a couple weeks ago was how we're like, America is at the brink of ruin. So therefore, I have to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're like, oh my God, your house is about to catch on fire. So let me light this match. Like that is where we are. And the issue, the politics of this is you could believe that or not. But what should give people pause to think is the fact that Trump has been talking about tariffs and his love of tariffs for 40 years. He has, since, at least that I know of, since the late 1980s, he took out a Wall Street Journal ad in the late 1980s about tariffs. When someone talks about something for that long and then declares an emergency about that, you just go, this is just your toolkit.
So because we love America so much on this podcast, we are going to urge Congress to pass the multiple bills that have been introduced recently to take away the president's ability to enact tariffs, because tariffs are taxes, and tax in the Constitution, the ability to tax lives with Congress. There's a loophole here that clearly needs to be fixed. Right now, it seems like there's, somewhere between 55 to 60 members of Congress that support this. And apparently this is vetoable, so you need 67 members of Congress to actually pass this through, because Trump would just veto it, right? That's all I'm going to say. I think the reason I'm doing the oral history is because it immediately becomes clear that this needs to be reversed. JP Morgan has come out and said, in the past 2 days, this happened all within the past, really, 2 trading days, Thursday, Friday last week. Okay? They said that these tariffs will lead the U.S. into recession and the globe into a recession. That's how serious this is.
That's ERF. ERF, people. ERF, when he says the globe.
The facts I see about the apparel that the U.S. wears says 98% of the clothing we buy in this country is imported. All of those goods is now subject to tariffs.
That's why I'm going naked from now on. I'm getting naked. I'm all America. When I walk around, I want it to be all America.
So then we're still early Thursday, markets crashing, things end up down around 5%, right? We're going to talk about some of the stats that compare to other periods of extreme turmoil and not a president's decoration. We'll do that at the end of the week when we recap the trading day. But you have these nonpartisan groups in Washington, or in some cases partisan groups like the Reagan Caucus, going all in on talking about their concerns with the recent tariffs, the math behind those tariffs, the lack of understanding of economics. It's fascinating to watch. I mean, were you feeling this Thursday morning, Doogles? Are you just like feeling the revolt?
I already told you that I tariff so hard economics can't find me. I already told you that.
All right.
Go on.
So then people get wise to the fact that we put tariffs on countries that only have penguin inhabitants. And the internet
I think there might be polar bears too. So just to be clear.
Can we just
no
applaud
humans.
the internet here? The internet took the Zelensky Trump Vance picture, put a penguin in Zelensky's spot with them holding up their hands, and just had a lot of fun with this. That was great. You know, lots of tweets and other memes about the penguins taking advantage of us. If the penguins wore a suit, which I found hilarious because penguins often are always wearing a suit, Doogles.
That's true. I also loved the follow-up as well that someone put out that was penguins with backpacks.
Yeah.
And they're like, the penguins are now leaving Herd Island and McDonald Island. Is this what you voted for? I love it.
Any battle, because I think we need humor and levity in this situation. Any battle between penguins and Americans about tariffs, I'm here for.
And to interject again. The reason why we need humor and levity, because I want to be serious for a second, is if these tariffs stick, it's awful. Unequivocally. You can say what you want to say about, like, you can't, it's complex adaptive system, you don't know what's going to happen. You can say any of that. If these stick, I will just say it's catastrophe. Like, no doubt about it.
Doogles, we're going to get to this. I 100% agree with that. And I'm going to tell you all the people from across all aspects of politics and economics and mathematics and finance that are saying just that, right? James McIntosh, friend of the show, author in the Wall Street Journal, writes on Thursday morning, the market upheaval from Trump's tariffs could be just the beginning. He walks through exactly how bad this is.
It's a good one.
Right?
It's a good piece.
His first sentence to the piece is recession now spelled tariff? I mean, crushes it. New York Times, the very first Thursday morning, says the childish tariff formula that will reshape the global economy. We're going to keep going because I sent you, 20 of these different data points of people that truly understand what happened here, saying just how bad it is.
Like, sorry. But yes, everything you just said. But I want people to fully understand. It's so bad. Like, this is, if the arguments that I saw on the X's, on the Instagrams, that were for this, all are contemplated under the context that they don't stay. So let me say that and then throw something else on it.
Yeah.
The arguments for this all are under the context that they don't stay. If you are in a position where you're using something as a negotiating tactic, I'm not saying that we're doing that or not, but I'm just saying, if you go to the first point and you're saying these only work if they don't stick, and you're trying to negotiate with somebody, and you were telling them that this can't stay, that is a terrible negotiation tactic. If I was China, with I don't know how old China is, 10,000 years old, whatever. China's an old country. It's like a 65-year-old negotiating with a 5-year-old, like from the different ages of our countries, and being like, cool, I'll just sit back. Like, I can wait this out, bro. That's what I would do if I was China.
No, the negotiating point is basically nonsensical in my view.
Yeah.
Because they got the math wrong.
But they can't stick. I know, and they can't stick either. So what is you can't use it as negotiation, and you can't actually have it.
Yeah, we put tariffs on a country like Singapore, which is tiny and entirely built on free trade. Like the entire country, there are zero tariffs on everything as it relates to Singapore.
We put tariffs on a country like Heard and McDonald Island. Like, why you don't have to go to Singapore? Like, but the freaking penguins are leaving, bro. The penguins are leaving.
So anyway, to agree with you, one, this is really, really bad. That's why us, true lovers of America, are explaining it right now. But
Yes.
two, you can't, negotiation doesn't work because it's not based in fact. The only way you can negotiate with people is if there's common goals, common trust, and some overlap in a win-win situation. If you start making stuff up, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And here's a tweet. I didn't send this to you, sorry. Here's a tweet. It's just from @PresidentChi. It says, ha ha.
Stop it. All right. So then this is like Thursday night. Stock market's down 5%. People are in a little disbelief. Again, nonpartisan group from DC, the Tax Foundation, does a rough calculation that says Trump's tariffs amount to an average tax increase of more than $2,100 per household. I've seen these nonpartisan numbers range between $2,000 and as much as $5,000. Okay? Everything we buy just got more expensive.
The average household just spent $3,000 in alcohol yesterday because of this. So you can't tell me it's only going to be $2,100.
My goodness. So at this point, I had a rough Thursday. I mean, just this is not fun. And I'm wondering if there's a long game here, Doogles. Could it possibly be, with all the deregulation we've seen in the crypto space, that this administration wants all world trade to happen in crypto, and therefore erode our advantage as the common currency for the world? Could that be? Is that what's going on here?
You're falling into my trap that I always fall into, where you try and put like a chess game on chutes and ladders. Because literally, no, but I'm like, to be honest.
Okay.
If there was a long game here, you wouldn't have a sophomoric formula to back it up. Like,
or maybe
it would actually be better. No, it would be better to have a random number generator that people couldn't figure out. Honestly, like if you just had, and they'd be like, "Oh man, this is so complicated that I can't even the top economists can't figure out how you did this." That would be better than having a formula that makes it so obvious. Like, that's not a long game. This is the world's shortest game. This is a game of, it's like you're playing war with one card. This is a short game, player.
I'm just going to say it's possible because I got nothing better to say. Because why? Fair, if you make everything more expensive, this is like if you have a Visa card and Visa's like, oh, you know what? Every time you spend on the Visa cards, we add 50%. You're gonna not use the Visa card anymore. You're gonna be like, oh, I'll just pay cash.
This is why I'm legitimately most scared. Let's rewind, flip the game back, and reverse it. Okay? What we just talked about, I'm whispering so they don't hear me. What we just talked about a minute ago was this. If you're using this as a negotiation tactic, that's stupid. If you want these to stick, what you just said, that's stupid. It's not a long game. It's a short game. This is frightening. Frightening. Like, it really, that's why I texted you. You skipped this? Why you skipped this? I texted you. And what did I say to you? The market is actually underreacting right now. Mm-hmm. This is frightening. This is I was joking about the chi haha. I was joking about that. Yeah. But like, if I was an enemy of the US, honestly, I'd be like,
it's really so amazing. It's so amazing. Do you know that Mexico and Canada have reached out to not only the European Union, but also China to try and forge trade agreements? Like, basically, everyone is laughing and trying to reduce our role in the game, as they should be. Okay, we're still Thursday night. Yes, I agree. I think the market was underreacting. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, comes out with a statement. Just go read a piece of it that says, the tariff measures announced by the U.S. on Wednesday represent a significant risk to the global economy at a time of sluggish growth. We appeal to the U.S. and trading partners to work constructively to resolve tensions and reduce uncertainty. The International Monetary Fund, that's like, again, we run the International Monetary Fund. So the only good news that happens Thursday night is there's more bills going to Congress to overwrite the president's ability to release tariffs. All right?
And Thursday, this Thursday under the Trump administration was the worst day for the S&P 500 since whose administration? Oh, sorry, the last Trump administration.
Okay. At this point, the president of Argentina, who is a little bit of a folk hero for some of the conservative movement, which I support, comes out and destroys tariffs, which he's all removed. And he also, I believe, has proactively negotiated down the tariffs that the U.S. imposed on him. But good for him. He's an economics professor. He would never have put this stupid equation out there. Okay. Then we get to the investing community. Clifford Asness, who we love on the show and mention all the time, just starts going crazy about the pure lunacy that's happening here, as does another person we love on the show, Bill Gurley, who happens to be a really conservative guy. Both those guys are conservative, brilliant investors, and they're just tearing this administration apart, as they should be, right? Have we made it to Friday yet?
I think we might be at Friday. Yeah, I think we're at Friday now.
We're in Friday. So this is coming off a 5% drop. Let's talk about the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was down more than anything else. And basically, from market open to close, it's just more carnage. Another 5% drop.
I have a text from you that has 964,000 exclamation points. Please get to that one.
Well, hold on. So then, before we even get there, Gavin S. Baker, who is also kind of a conservative commentary, talks about how if national security is based on winning artificial intelligence, that these tariffs just made the ability to win in AI basically impossible because it made the input cost to all the AI compute significantly higher and calls this a national security issue. That's an interesting take as well. But yes, then there is and Jerome Powell also comes out and says how dangerous and concerned he is about the tariffs and how they basically need to be repealed immediately, right? Okay.
This would be catastrophic.
Then apparently there is a Truth Social post from our president. I've not been able to find this, but the Wall Street Journal reports there's a Truth Social post with a video that includes a figure that appears to be Warren Buffett endorsing the president's economic plan. You know how, I'm not even sure if Berkshire Hathaway has a PR department. Like, they have some person sitting in a chair that probably reads the newspaper.
The PR department, her name is Susan Buffett, and she is dead.
They had to immediately put out basically a cease and desist saying, we do not support these policies.
This is the thing. There are people that I may not always agree with what they believe, but that I really respect intellectually, that are falling into weird quagmires. One that we've talked about a few times on the show is Bill Ackman. And he also, with regard to Buffett, he tweets out a cover from, I think it was Fortune or something. He tweets this out, and it's Warren Buffett back in 2003 talking about tariffs and talking about the trade deficit, which we're gonna do an economics lesson on the trade deficit in a few minutes here. He talking about the trade deficit. We have to get rid of it. It's an emergency, etc. What I love most about this is that what he tweeted on the cover, if you look at the first paragraph of this, Warren Buffett says, historically, I have not been very good at predicting macroeconomics. So you can kind of ignore what I'm going to say here, but here's my opinion. That's what Warren Buffett says in the thing that they are tweeting out to be even Warren Buffett believe this.
Yeah, and he clearly doesn't. No, this is a whole new level of we've talked about the catastrophic effects. We've talked about people from former conservative presidents like Reagan and Bush to brilliant financial people like Bill Gurley and Clifford Asness to the president of the International Monetary Fund to every world leader that isn't based in the U.S. Like, it goes on. Basically, I cannot find...
To Doogles.
I cannot find a credible person with an incredible track record who is supporting this. I just can't find it.
No. Do you know why? There's no
I know
logic.
exactly why. Okay. So then I want to hammer home a point on why this is catastrophic, and then you can do your economics lesson on trade deficits. Okay. Here's a rough analysis of Apple products, of how much more expensive they would be under this setup. iPhones up 43%, iPads up 42%, and computers up 39%. Average iPhone 16 Pro Max would go from like $1,600 to $2,300. How does that make anyone's life better? And then on top of that, these are jobs that we don't want. Like, no one wants these jobs. I shouldn't say no one. Very few people would benefit from these jobs. A lot of the stuff that Americans consume gets manufactured in poorer work conditions with people working 60 to 80 hours per week, making very minimal wages. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's a no-win situation, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's stupid.
Do you want to tell us about trade deficits, or do you want to talk about just how bad the last 2 days in stock performance were?
We're going to do both. So the question is, let's do trade deficits first. Then let's talk about the stock market. Okay? And I feel like we've had some quick, little short economics lessons on this pod for the past few weeks. The reason why is because from the comments that we're seeing out there and what people are saying, it's obvious and it's understandable. I'm not saying this to be like people are dumb or ignorant or anything. It's actually, this is like hard stuff to understand. It's understandable why people don't understand some of these basic concepts, but it's obvious that they don't. So that's why we talked about, like, what is GDP? How do you calculate GDP? Like, that was one thing. You had your bucket analogy, right? When it comes to our own budget. Now let's just talk a little bit about trade and trade deficits and the good and the bad of running a trade deficit. I want to talk about that for a second. So what a trade deficit is, so people are clear, is you have imports and you have exports. An import for a country is when you go and you buy goods from another country and you bring them or import them into your country. An export is when you produce something in your country and then you sell that to another country. And the way that economics has fleshed out over the last really 100 years, but even shorter, in full, like since World War II is like when it fully came up in here. It's been happening for a long time, like for hundreds, thousands of years, but like really has been flourishing since World War II, is that you have this comparative advantage situation where you have countries that have certain minerals and certain labor, like demographics and or costs.
Or agriculture.
Or
Coffee's
agriculture.
An easy one. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. You are better situated to make certain things. You can do that at a better cost, and it's cheaper for someone like the United States often to have them produce it and us buy it from them than it is for us to make it. It's either cheaper or impossible for us to do in some circumstances.
And of course it is. I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to jump in here, right? If someone else is sitting on a massive amount of lithium, it might make sense to manufacture the batteries there. If Ecuador or Costa Rica can grow coffee that you're not even capable of growing in the U.S. or Norway or South Africa, right? Like, of course, we should have them grow the coffee, and we should take the coffee which we love and consume and give them something of value, whether that's monetary or not. If we go a point where you're not allowed to have a trade deficit with the other country, what that means is we go back to the days of barter and only barter, right? My farm only raises pigs, your farm only raises cows, and we can't even work with each other if I don't need some cows and you don't need some pigs. We have to go to a third or fourth or fifth merchant. Absolutely idiotic. It takes Goes back hundreds of years economically.
Exactly. And like a really practical example and a simple to understand example is when you look at lumber. You brought up lumber earlier. And you owned some Canadian lumber before.
West Fraser Group, baby.
Canada has wonderful lumber. And part of the reason is because in Canada, the way that the agriculture and the weather is situated is that their trees grow much slower than they do in the US or otherwise. So they have a lot of land and they have the situation and the context such that their trees grow slower, which makes them stronger, and you can build better houses and whatever else you're building from that lumber. Canadian lumber is very, very, very valuable. The only other place that I know of that has similar lumber situation is Russia, right? Also, it's colder, it grows slower, etc. So Canadian lumber is really, really valuable. If we didn't have that, we couldn't build to the quality that we need to build sustainably here in the US. That's an example. So they do that. So we buy that lumber. We don't buy that lumber. One, we don't have the amount of space in the US to have the trees right now because of how we've developed, and we don't have the climate to be able to grow good lumber. So we buy it from them. Very practical example.
Well, and we should. It's a natural competitive advantage for them, and it's a win-win. So Derek Thompson had an epic rant about this week because in imposing 25% tariffs on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and then saying this is about protecting millennials so they can buy houses, the hypocrisy of that is really crazy because the majority of wood to build that house comes from Canada. You just made that more expensive. The majority of drywall to build that house comes from Mexico. You just made that more expensive. Like, what is actually the goal here? Shouldn't we be trying to make housing more affordable?
So now to go back to the definition, to go back to the definition of trade deficit. So we talked about imports. Someone else creates something. They might have an advantage there. You buy it from them. You bring it in or import it into your country. Exports. You produce something in your country and you sell it to them. The difference between those two is either your trade surplus or your trade deficit. A trade deficit is when you import more than you export. You buy more things from other countries than you sell to other countries. And that is where we are at a trade deficit. We've run a trade deficit for a long period of time. We consume and buy more things from other countries than we sell to other countries. That is the definition of a trade deficit. Okay. So then people is like, we can't be running a trade deficit. Like, hold up. We run trade deficit? That means they're taking advantage of us. That's what that means. That is what people are saying out there. They are taking advantage of us. Let's go back to the Target or your burrito example from earlier. I go to Target.
It means I'm taking advantage of them.
I buy more from Target than I sell to Target. Therefore, Target is taking advantage of me. That is what we are saying. Like, that may seem oversimplistic, but that's what we're saying. It is that simple. Like, we buy more things from Vietnam than we sell to Vietnam. Do you really expect us to sell more things to Vietnam than we buy it from Vietnam? Do you really expect the penguins of Heard and McDonald Island to buy more from us than we buy from them? No. Like, this is how nonsensical it is. And the thing that I feel like this is going to get a little bit more complicated. And there are other arguments here too. But for a trade deficit, if you want to be the world's reserve currency, which is what we are, and what that means is that the world uses dollars. They hold dollars, they use dollars, they value dollars above all other currencies. That is being the reserve currency. If you want to be that, you have HAFFF. You have to run a trade deficit.
To run a trade deficit.
Why?
Well, because it means that, one, let's go back to The Big Short. Let's go back to Margin Call, the movie.
Oh, there we go.
These transactions, willing buyers, willing sellers. No one is twisting my arm saying that the toy that my son needs, that I have to buy that toy. I'm buying the toy that has the best economic value for me. And if that just happens that it's produced in Vietnam, so be it. If it wasn't produced, that would be much more expensive. But no, to your reserve currency point, you put out all these additional dollars into the system, which is great for us. It gives us all the leverage. And then that excess currency floating around allows other people to trade with the dollars that they sit on. The worst thing that could possibly happen is for there not to be demand for our dollars.
That's right.
Because that means our currency is less value, which means everything that we want to buy. Right now, the world is almost our store, right? You keep doing the Target example. It's like, yeah, but there's Target and Walmart and Dollar General and everything else, and they all are
like that
happy
Dollar General
to accept dollars from us, right?
That's right. That's right.
You know what happens with some of those stores? Either start shutting down or saying we don't accept your currency anymore.
No, it's already happening. I went down the street. It's called Yuan General. No,
You got jokes. You got jokes.
that joint is called Deutschmark General.
Let's talk about how bad stock market performance is or was for the last 2 days last week. So for the fourth time since 1952, we had a 10% 2-day drop in the S&P. The other times, Doogles, are October 2008, March 2020. Those other events were catastrophic events that were out of our control.
Self-induced. Self-induced.
Self-induced, a 2-day 10% drop.
Call is coming from inside the house.
Okay. That we won't spend much time on that. Well, maybe we will. It's so depressing. It's so sad. And to your point, you think the market is still underreacting. Don't make predictions, but I would not be surprised if next week is.
No, the market's underreacting if the tariffs stick.
Mm-hmm.
Like if these tariffs stick, the market should be down 80%. Like just to be completely frank, like it doesn't. Our economy becomes questionable if the tariffs stick. So the market is betting they don't. It's like hedging. If you go down by 10% in a couple days, that's a hedge. When the downside risk is your economy.
Yeah.
Just got a Molotov cocktail thrown into it.
Yes. So,
and by the way, just to be clear, that's not a good cocktail.
No.
Don't order that.
Midday Friday, Wharton professor Jeremy Siegel goes on the record saying this is the biggest policy mistake in 95 years. Late Friday, we have folks like Ted Cruz saying tariffs are a tax on customers. I'm not a fan of jacking up taxes on American consumers. It goes on. Hopefully I've made my point that there are people from across the political spectrum that I believe understand economics and mathematics and finance that universally think this is a terrible idea. I fully believe that.
You know what makes me really, really excited, though, politically even, is so I believe Ted Cruz is one of the, if not the, smartest person that we have in Congress. Like just intellectually. He is like a mental powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been playing that politically for the past whatever number of years. He's just been it's his own little personal chess game that he's been running for a number of years. And I personally have been waiting for him to just express intelligence, like pure intelligence for a while. And what I saw him do this week, I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, there it is. This is what it took. For him, he's only been running the party line for so long. So that says, to your point, that says how bad this is potentially, that Ted Cruz started to use his brain. He turned to his wife and he was like, oh, it's actually time. Okay. All right.
Trying to make things political here, Doogles. I'm almost ready to plea with Congress. We just need to fix this. This is universally thought as bad.
Do your job.
History says this is bad. Go fix it, guys.
Do your job. Not even just do your job. That's it.
But can you imagine? I have a hard time imagining representing any group of people in this country, whether that's in Middle America, on the coast, in a big city, in a small city, and having the majority of your constituents, even basically just not having everyone with a stake, beating down your door, telling you how harmful this is to your everyday.
If people are showing up with meat products like steaks to your door.
I deserve that one. I struggled with that one. All right. We have hopefully destroyed tariffs. I hope we never have to talk about it again. That'd be great.
It would be. I hope that people please listener mail. Please send us listener mail if you have questions about this. Or you could hit us on our Instagram at Skippy Doogles, hit us on Twitter at Skippy Doogles, skippydoogles@gmail.com. However, contact us and ask us questions that you might have about this. It's really important. And again, like I said earlier, it's understandable that folks don't fully get how all this stuff works because, as you always say, it is a complex adaptive system, the economy. So it's understandable people don't get it. Please ask the questions because I love, and I believe you're in the same camp. I love that in America, I feel like we can't anymore. I love that we have this environment that you can debate and argue about things and protest things. And I love that. But we have to do that from a common set of facts. And right now, what's happening is that there are false narratives being put out. We talked about the whole tariff calculation. You talked about it ad nauseum today. But I just want to say blanketly, it is outrageous that was called a tariff. That's not
it's
a tariff.
Not a tariff.
No.
But
people
adjustment
now
of trade deficits.
No, it is nothing. It literally, the equation of trade deficit divided by import means nothing in economics.
Nothing.
It means
Absolutely
nothing. It means nothing. Yeah. Again, it's the same as us saying you go to Target, you buy $100, and you divide that by your imports from Target, which is zero. It doesn't mean anything. And so the fact that right now we are telling something, it's a politically powerful narrative because it's simple to understand. It just is erroneous and meaningless. So I just want folks to get how the economy works and basic definitions. So skippydoogles@gmail.com, at Skippy Doogles on Instagram, at Skippy Doogles on Twitter. Please just ask us any questions. What is GDP? What is a trade deficit? Explain this, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really appreciate your perspective because I've taken so many economics and finance and accounting and business and mathematics courses that to me, these errors, I almost want to vomit. They're so bad. But I also tend to come from a perspective of thinking this is pretty easy to understand, and it clearly isn't.
No,
so
because sorry to cut you off, but
no,
agree. It's because, as you said, both of us we've taken finance courses. You build on that. For economics courses, you build on that. You work in industry for 20 plus years. We have compounding knowledge. We've invested for 20 plus years, which means we're reading 10Ks and understanding financials. This stuff is so ingrained in us that things feel obvious. And when they aren't obvious to others, that again does not mean that others are ignorant or dumb or anything. It's just that you don't have the compounding knowledge over a number of years. It's very understandable. If you work in a different industry or you get art better than I do. I don't know what the heck art is. I was in Paris, right? Last week, looking at Mona Lisa, I was like, why some fifth grader drew a drawing? I don't know what this is. I
actually like the Mona Lisa, man. I get it. That's one of the few I get.
Why they chopped arms off this poor lady? Venus ain't got no arms.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, so next week we will hopefully get a chance to talk about some interesting investing opportunities that are popping up. We're going to talk about a couple of those now with Inside the Trade for premium listeners.
Inside the Trade for premium listeners, Inside the Trade. skippydoogles.supercast.com. Go there. You can get your premium membership. Inside the Trade starting right now. Everybody else, see you next week.
See ya.